let's get started. So now that we know a little bit more about our panelists, let's go into the professional introduction. So Mert, if you could just start us off with a self-introduction, just so people can know your relevance to the theme at hand of AI and marketing.
Yeah, so I currently run the global marketing data science team at Uber. My teams are supporting 800 plus marketers. They're spending like hundreds of millions of dollars annually in terms of measurements, attribution, optimization, targeting, and insights. That includes both paid channels and paid digital channels, also CRM owned channels. And before that, I was in a startup in LA doing multi-touch attribution, TV attribution, and cross-channel. And before that, I was in another company doing scenario simulation, forecasting, budget optimization products.
Nice. Nice. So it sounds like we had made a good choice in inviting you to this panel. And Jaap, how about you? What's your professional relevance here?
So I'm the head of marketing at Gradient Ventures. Gradient Ventures is Google's AI-focused venture capital firm. And so what we do is we make early stage investments, typically at the Series A, but sometimes seed and Series B as well. And that's checks anywhere between 1 and 10 million. And as companies grow, we grow with them. And so we are an AI-focused fund. You may know CapG and GV as well within Google. We're exclusively focused on AI companies, and we can do that because most of our investment partners are highly technical. Anna Pedersen, our managing partner, has spent a lot of time, on Google search itself, which is very strongly AI-focused. So that's what I do as a head of marketing. There's 2 components of the job, or 3 components of the job. One of them is working with portfolio companies on their go-to-market challenges and marketing challenges. One of them is actually thinking about the fund itself and how we're positioned as a fund within the venture capital landscape. And then third, working on diligence for companies in the marketing space specifically.
Cool. That's cool. So I bet you have a pretty broad view of how many different companies are thinking about AI when it comes to marketing. That's cool.
Yeah, you see a lot. Yeah,
that's awesome. And Ashish, are you good to go? Ashish, tech good?
I think so. If you guys can hear me okay and see me fine, then I guess we're good.
Yeah, you sound good. You look good. Welcome. All right. So before you give us your professional introduction, since I missed you for the basic questions, just tell us where did you grow up?
Oh, so I'm originally from India, so born and raised in India, and not just one city in India. My dad was in a job that took us across the length and breadth of the country. So hard for me to pinpoint one particular city, but yeah, originally from India, and have been now in US, came for graduate school like a lot of immigrants like myself, and then have been here for the last 25 plus years.
Nice. Awesome. Wow. So we have Turkey, India, and the Netherlands represented
wow.
here. That's awesome. All right. And so now give us your professional introduction. Why does Ashish make sense on this panel?
Yeah, sure. Well, why am I here? Makes sense. That's up to you guys, right? But I can, I can tell you why I responded or why this is of interest to me. So look, background-wise, I mean, right now I'm at Humana. I lead enterprise marketing for what we call our healthcare services, care services part of the business, which is everything other than insurance services part of the business. I mean, like a lot of healthcare or big health payers, Humana is also transitioning from a pure payer side into more of a full service, care business, where there's a payer side of the business and then there is, healthcare side of the business. So I'm the head of marketing on that part of the business, and have been in healthcare for last 16 months or so now. Before this, all of my background was in performance marketing and financial services. So most recently, before Humana, I was running marketing at a digital payment startup, venture-backed startup called Remitly. It's no longer a startup. I joined Ruoff after Series A, and by the time I left, we were Series E almost. So that was a great fun journey. And before that, I was with Capital One for a long time. So in all my roles, I would say data analytics, consumer insights, like has been a theme to drive the business, drive the P&L. And that's why now, here we are working with organizations to drive the business, drive the P&L, and also help them drive the insights and
Great. I think I just froze for a moment, but I'm back. All right. Awesome. So now let us begin. So hello, everybody. Welcome. Just to, set the lay of the land. This conversation for the next about 50 minutes is focused on how, AI is coming to life within the domain of marketing. The couple ground rules I'm going to set is I'm about to send in the chat to all of you the handful of preset questions that we have, just so that you can understand kind of the journey we're about to go on. And then if you have any questions throughout, the whole conversation, just click the Q&A button and submit it, and we'll try to get to as many audience questions as we can. All right, here we go. So from a high level, we're starting, 30,000 foot view. How has AI changed marketing? And, explain it as if I'm 10 years old. This question is not meant to get caught up in the weeds. Somebody jump in.
I can go first.
Perfect.
I mean, what I'm seeing recently is especially on targeting sites, and especially on for existing users, you could be very targeted with AI and understand certain behaviors and predict them. For example, we can now build models, very targeted models for cross-sell, upsell, or re-engagement, meaning you can predict if someone is going to do another order or another trip, not because they will anyway, but they will do it because you show them an impression, or you send them an email, or you send them a promotion. So you can really understand the incrementality of those behaviors, given that there's a marketing intervention. And these models can save a lot of money, especially if you are giving people promotions. You can only send it to people who would otherwise wouldn't take an action, and you don't waste your promotions that way. You don't send it to everyone. And you can also understand some of the harder problems with the same type of methodology, as what is the value of, for example, someone, I'm talking in the context of Uber and ride sharing business. So what is the value of someone taking an airport trip on the long-term lifetime value? And there was the first premium ride trip, and you can tease that out, and that way you can determine how much to pay for that impression, if you know the value. And in that way you can actually optimize for your both bottom line and then top line revenue growth. So I think that's with the investment of the big data and modeling capabilities, targeting becomes very accurate.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. And then, Ashish, you've been in marketing for a while. What did it used to be like before, personalization and AI and data science was part of this field? What did it used to be like?
Yeah. So first of all, before I give my point of view on what you asked, I want to caveat it by saying that I have been, looking back, very fortunate that even 15, 18 years back, I was fortunate to work for organizations, be a part of organizations that were always at the cutting edge of analytics, even back in the day, right? So back in the day when analytics, a lot of analytics used to happen in Excel and some of the mainframe and things like that, some of the other language like SAS and all of that, we were still like Capital One back in the day, or HSBC long time back in the day in financial services, or LI Bank that I was a part of. They were always at the cutting edge back in the day. So I've always been used to being a part of cultures where you are doing your response modeling, pricing modeling, sophisticated targeting to really, drive your strategies. Where I think AI has made a difference is in my experience, building on what Mert said, AI has enabled analytics at scale. So you can not only think about optimizing 5 different point solutions, but those point solutions also on its own can handle some really large complex problems. So I think that is one aspect I see, and the examples in my experience are across pricing, across creative testing, like, versus a human looking at past wins in marketing, messaging, and creatives. You actually feed it into a model, and then model tells you that, what looks like for this particular segment, this is the kind of choice of words that you should be going for. So in my experience, I would say it's really enabling analytics at scale. Now, going to your question earlier, that how it used to be earlier, I talking to my peers, organizations where analytics was not back in the day at a cutting edge. I think what AI has done is, with the democratization of computing power and some of the AI tools and packages, I think this has just brought analytics to organizations of various sizes. Like, I'm still involved in a advisor capacity with some early stage startups. The kind of analytics they are able to do when you are like at a seed stage, or even, pre-A stage, or Series A stage, is something that 15 years back you couldn't have thought of.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Jap. I mean, are immersed in the AI startup world specifically, and I guess, is there like a large gap between, the marketing capabilities of one of your portfolio companies versus the marketing capabilities of, Google, for example, your parent company?
So actually, in a way, no. I think there's a lot of disciplines within marketing that even with AI stay very similar, and that are very core to the discipline, like messaging and positioning, that are quickly like very strategic. And so, a lot of our companies aren't marketing companies, but they apply AI in a way that it makes something, particularly better. Like, for example, Elsa is one of our portfolio companies that helps you learn a language, and not only learn the language itself and speak it better, but also pronounce it better. So because all these data can be super quickly analyzed and it can be processed on the cloud, it can now instantly analyze your soundbite and return to you what you need to pronounce differently. So for a company like that, the actual like marketing capabilities that are driven by AI, they're kind of playing in the same space. But obviously the marketing field has also itself been revolutionized by AI. And there are some obvious tools that everyone has to their disposal, right? Like in digital marketing, there's a lot more capabilities. Like, for example, with dynamic search ads, like within Google, there's a lot more like auto-generated content and experimentation that can automatically happen. Similarly, there's tools in the content marketing space. For example, there's tools like Market Muse or Phrase.io, where basically it scrapes like all the content from the web and looks where are the gaps in terms of what is out there and what people are searching for. Now, that is not something that would have been possible before cloud computing at all. So, as a marketer, there's definitely different tools to your disposal that you're now kind of super charged with. And so obviously, because of that, another way that AI would have impacted marketing as a discipline is actually the way that you hire, right? So rather than in your hiring only looking for talent that has, the brand and communication side of marketing, in the performance marketing side, there is a much stronger analytical component. So yeah, those are some of the ways that I think about it.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Yeah, it's crazy to think that, a small seed Series A startup could at all compete in terms of like marketing, capability with a large Fortune 500 company. But yeah, I guess maybe that's become the case. All right, let's jump on to our next question, which I think is an interesting one. So, how does AI make it into your marketing program? Is it models built in-house, third parties, both? And I want to give people a sense for like, yeah, how do you build a AI powered marketing program in the present day? Whoever's excited, jump in.
I can since Mert was gracious enough last time to uh, to start the conversation. I can volunteer. For us, I mean, based on my again, past few years or even the current kind of engagement, it's a mix of both. It's a mix of some internal development and then at times strategic outsourcing. So it's a mix of both. Really comes down to that in-house versus kind of outsourcing, kind of build versus buy decision comes down to what are you trying to solve for? Is there a solution that either internally you don't have the data, talent, or just resources, bandwidth to focus on, or sometimes there is a partner that comes with a unique capability, proven capability, and that's where you decide to partner. So it's really, there's no, I would say there's no standard kind of answer on that. And in terms of how do you build a program like data driven, I think it's really starts with culture. In my experience, I mean, having worked at organizations that are best in class in data driven, being data driven marketing, performance marketing organizations, to a startup where we scaled a really exciting data driven customer centric business, or some of the transition stories that I've been a part of. And I think it all starts with the culture. It starts with the right talent, right leadership competencies, the tools, the data, the technology, that follows. But if the culture is not there, that data driven culture, how the decisions are made, how we talk about decisions, how we think about frameworks, then I think everything else, you can have the best data, you can have the best technology, but that data driven marketing powerhouse doesn't get built.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna dig in a little bit, Ashish. So, so you're the CMO of the marketing function. So CMO of marketing, redundant. You're the CMO for all the non-insurance stuff that Humana does. And so you're sitting up top, you're making decisions. Let's allocate budget here, allocate budget here. But then, as part of your department, like, do you have full-time data scientists that are building models and figuring out how to get those into production in the marketing function? Do you have people, that are just focused on the, third-party vendor piece and trying to find like cool AI startups that you want to actually leverage? Who are like the personnel that you've actually assembled into your department?
Yeah. So we have, I mean, we are a large, I mean, Humana is a Fortune 56 company. So as you can imagine, both because of the size of the business and the complexity of healthcare, which I've come to appreciate in last 16 months, it's a complex business because there's so many stakeholders in the value chain. We have both, we have in-house kind of analytical resources, smart data scientists and business marketing analysts who sit within marketing, and then we have enterprise-wide kind of the data and analytics function as well. So it really all starts with the what is the marketing problem, what is the business problem, what is the customer problem we are trying to solve in pursuit of the business objectives. And then it's these people, right? I mean, these analysts, regardless of where they are sitting in the organization, that are making those assessments and recommendations, that what do we kind of decide to build internally, and what do we decide to partner with an external party.
Cool. Got it. Thank you. Yeah, who's next? How do you build an AI driven marketing organization? Who's a part of it? How do you structure it? How do you make decisions?
Was it for me? Sorry.
No, that was for Mert or Jaap.
Okay.
Thanks, Ashish.
Sure. I think the build versus buy decision that Ashish raises definitely makes sense. I think there's a lot of stuff that you would only be able to do with your proprietary in-house data, right? Like you can't buy a tool necessarily that's gonna, for example, make a recommendation engine with the data that your company has. And so that would need to be internal. Now, it's really important to make sure that even if you want to adopt AI into your company, into your business, that you really stay focused on the end result of what it is that you're going towards. So, if that means you're actually going to be able to provide better recommendation for your consumers, and that's going to uplift, the performance of your business significantly, then you should definitely do that. And that may require an in-house solution. Then, you can obviously implement AI solutions by licensing existing software, which is fairly easy. And in fact, there's actually a lot of tools out there that leverage AI in some way. And in fact, probably whatever it is that you're already using, there is already AI components in it. And when truly, as a marketer, your job is to realize customer value, right? You have a bunch of existing customers and potential customers, and how do you make sure that they become valuable for the company? Now that's become a lot easier with good analytics. Things like customer lifetime value analyses, etc., have become a lot easier, even though the theory may have been out there long before like cloud computing became more widespread. Now those analyses can actually be run, so you just know a lot more about your customer and whether or not they're going to churn, when to upsell, how they're different from other customers, how to segment your market in much greater detail.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then Jaap, I'm curious. So I know the portfolio gradient. It's all like AI focused companies. But then are there like AI marketing focused companies that are selling products specifically to marketing departments?
We currently don't have a portfolio of companies where the primary buyer would be a marketing department, but we certainly evaluate companies in that space. And my bet is that at some point we will make an investment in that space.
Got it. Cool. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I guess the reason for the question, which you can still probably shed light on, is like, one of the big stresses, which you guys alluded to slightly, is, okay, we're the big company. We have all these customers and all this data. Here's the cool startup. They have really amazing models and smart people, but they don't have the data. How is that navigated? Like, do you guys have clear policies around which data sets you'll actually give to a third party to use? Or is it totally case by case and POC by POC?
What do you mean to give to a third party to use?
So I guess in your case with your portfolio companies, like what's their experience like working with customers and actually having access to their customer data?
Well, you can only really be an effective AI company if you have a certain data set that is really yours, right? That you have access to. And data in general is extremely protected. It's not something that's freely shared amongst companies. And so the example that I just called out, which is Elsa, which is where you actually speak into a phone, the data is all those sound bites of how someone pronounces the English language. We have other types of companies where, for example, accounting and bookkeeping is automated, right? Well, those are the data of that specific company that they can then analyze and automate as much as possible and much further with AI tools. And so there's lots of industry verticals in which we operate where companies run analytics on a certain specific data set. But really the amount of like data sharing between companies is fairly limited, which makes sense, right? Because that's kind of their raw ingredient in a way. Yeah, totally. Thanks, Jaap. All right, Mert. So, right, you're helping these, I think you said 800 marketers at Uber, market the various products you guys have. How's it set up? How are you guys successful with AI?
Yeah, actually, Uber, it's all the AI is like in-house, and there are a couple of reasons for it. Like most of the data is sensitive, and like we cannot share with third parties. But the main reason is the more sophisticated you get, and it is easier to build everything in-house. And there's like it operates in all around the world, and every country and city has nuances. So it would be really difficult to build something with a third party to capture all the nuances. And as we switch to more value-based optimization, and when we do performance marketing, meaning we calculate what is the profit from each of those users and what is the top line revenue, and then we set target CPAs. That's not something we want to share. We only share with Wall Street every quarter, and that for that reason we are like all in-house in the performance marketing side. On the brand side, it's more like agencies, like more like awareness campaigns. But the AI is like much less on the brand marketing side. But performance is like all AI driven.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting.
So there's almost like an internal agency and then data science team, engineers, product managers that builds these products.
Got it. So the agency comes up with some goal they have, some problem they're noticing, and then they consult with the data science team, and they spec out.
It's mostly like that about automation. As Ashish said, like they're on a non-branded search campaign. There's hundreds of thousands of keywords, and we automate like how much should we pay for each of them. So, and based on real-time data, so there are no budgets, right? We just have the targets, cost per acquisitions, and we need to calculate it regularly all the time. So it's more about like automation and scaling their campaigns. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. All right. Let us proceed. So now, you guys have mentioned some kind of use case examples, but I want to dig a little bit deeper into, what are you finding is like the most valuable sort of wow example of, AI and marketing in the current year, 2020?
I can go first. I would say they're actually all across the spectrum in marketing, right? Starting with I think targeting used to be the most kind of has been around the longest. Like you just get smarter and smarter at targeting, working with large amounts of data. I I would say pricing is one. That just the power of AI in making pricing decisions or recommendation decisions, not necessarily price, or what is the next kind of best action or best decision or best cross sell opportunity. I think those are some of the things that I'm seeing a lot of promise and value being continuously unlocked. And then I would say on the other end would be also things in messaging optimization. Like we work with a partner, and it's their platform and model, Persado, and they help us based on years and years of knowledge and insights that they've gained on our customer segment on their platform. With all the testing we do, it helps us really increase the speed to market in creative generation, messaging generation, because you can basically say, hey, I need to send this particular type of message to 100 people like me. And then the platform, based on prior learning, say, this is the choice of words within the brand guidelines. And you can spit out a complex test to pick the winner. So I think it's those kinds. So it's all across the marketing value chain that AI is unlocking value. And I'm really excited about it.
That's cool. Yeah, the copy generation example you just gave is interesting. And like, right, so when Persado, spits out a recommended draft, are you finding that, a human is then having to usually edit it, or it's coming out totally ready to send?
Yeah, I mean, there is still, going to be some human intervention, but it's less about changing it, but more just around making sure that, hey, from a brand perspective and everything, like, is there anything that, we need to just, discuss or review? But no, it's the changes are minimal. It's more, the human intervention is more to just a low touch review to say what is going out. Is it still kind of in line with what we wanted to do? That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I would
interesting.
say that's the case for most of AI in our portfolio as well. There's a lot of predictive analytics that's being done in a wide range of industries, where at the end of the day, you're still going to require humans in the loop, which is probably a good thing to do those types of reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as humans go, though, I mean, so now that, AI is writing the emails, do you, in theory, have maybe at least one less copywriter?
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be uh, all kinds of productivity kind of gains, right? Because of that, you're right. And or maybe in our case, or the way I like to think about it is that copywriter can actually then focus more on some of the, creative intent generation, or really looking at, the results from some kind of, what these tests are telling us. So I think you're just, your focus and resource allocation changes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Yeah, Mert, how about you? What's the making you go wow when it comes to applying AI in the marketing domain?
I agree with Ashish. I think the pricing and personalizing pricing by the use of promotions is you can like have a lot of growth with it. Like you can target your promotions to only the price sensitive people, and that will lead to incremental revenue. And you can do it at the right time, and you can do it in many different ways. You can also like do it for people who have churned. You can bring them back, or you predict someone is going to churn, and you only send it to people who needs it, and you can prevent churn, and you can again cross sell, upsell with the methods like contextual like band-aids. You can do it at the right time, and when you can sell a premium product like a black car, premium rides, and those are and you can do this in real time. Those are at scale. Those are like really recent things. And also again, like this scaling up, like running global campaigns with dynamic creatives, like in hundreds of countries, and showing the right creative. And for example, we have a display product where we can join auctions all around the world through beeswax, and we can show impressions, and we can show the impression at real time based on what we predict is going to yield us the most value. It could be an order from Uber Eats, it could be take a ride, or it could be something else.
Got it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm curious. You guys kind of made me think of a new question. So, Ashish, you mentioned Persado, and you just mentioned beeswax, Mert. What are some other just tools in your toolkit that you find super valuable? Ideally, AI related.
So I'm also seeing Linda's comment in the chat about profitability segmentation, and so in terms of tools, like from an analytics perspective, just the amount of analytics you can do on your customer base is so much higher. And so it turns out that if you look at your customers, the recency with which they purchased, the frequency with which they purchased, and the amount of money that they spent are that biggest predictor of how valuable this customer will be in the future. And so, there's a lot of research actually done into this area in terms of predicting the profitability of your existing customers. So that's something that now can be done better. And there's plenty of tools in that space that are, I think, at the very core of marketing, right? Because once you know more about your customer, then you can actually go to the, to the communications and the campaigns, et cetera, that have emerged. And so, some examples of those are like Gainsight and Bolstra and Catalyst, and some of these companies are also being acquired. Like Zodiac is a company that I think was acquired about 1.5 years ago. That came out of Wharton, that did exactly this, mostly for e-commerce players to understand like who are my most valuable customers, and so who should I focus my campaigns on or my communications, and in what way. So those are some examples, and I think just analytics in general. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So that's some good examples of profitability segmentation tools. Yeah, that's awesome. There you go, Linda. How about you guys, Mert, Ashish? Any other tools that are just can't live without? Obviously, AdWords and Facebook, but what are some more nuanced ones?
Yeah, I'm definitely most of our spend is on Google and Facebook. and we try to use their optimization capabilities as much as we can, and we also control like other things like our bids and campaign setup, and also Smartly and Tilium, this allows us like to set up our campaigns faster.
Cool. Smartly Tilium. Nice. Thanks. How about you, Ashish? Anything, is Persado your horse, or you have any other?
No, I mean we have a variety. I mean Telium as well. I mean more just mentioned, and then we have a deep partnership with Microsoft, so their suite of products, and then there are some niche kind of products and partnerships as well that are very healthcare use case specific. There are examples. I'm forgetting the name of the particular partnership, but there's example in some of the call center analytics, voice analytics, emotion analytics to predict churn, things like that. So it's across the entire customer journey, ranging from your big 800-pound gorillas in the tech space to focused niche players like Persado.
Cool. Nice. And then Sue here has another specific question. Do you guys have an opinion on Salesforce's Einstein product? And it's okay if you don't. Just wanted to give Sue a shot. All right, cool. Sorry, Sue. We have no opinion on that. All right, so someone else asked a question. Yeah, they're asking a question. It's sort of a sales question. It's around like, how do you avoid information overload? Like sometimes access to too much data leads to arguments over the leads and the source of truth. But I'm interested to ask you just about data in general and just maintaining, customer data. And what's that pipeline like? Yeah, interested to hear just about your database and best practices that you've learned to maintain a good customer database.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely the most important thing because like you can have the best models, but garbage in, garbage out, and we have like a lot of data engineers maintaining data pipelines, but it's usually there's a source data like individual events, and then there are other pipelines that aggregates it daily and hourly, and then there's like layers of pipelines, and we have like a very good infrastructure team here, but we also do guardrails and checks. Like if something deviates a lot from expected, then we get alerts. And the issue is on the performance side. There are tracking issues sometimes. Like we are, especially with self-attributing networks, you have to send the conversions back to them, and then they come back to you. And actually, another company I forgot to mention is Branch that handles our app attributions. So then that's out of your control if they have a problem, and then you have to work with them. So again, guardrails and monitoring is very important.
Nice. Any other thoughts on data management?
No, I mean I would agree with what Mert just said about garbage in, garbage out, and again my earlier comment around how culture is the most important part, because culture and talent that leads to that appreciation for data, and then investments in data engineering, data infrastructure, to ultimately have the right not only the right data infrastructure decisions, but data governance decisions as well. Because at the heart of all of this AI and machine learning and all of it is data, right? So having clean, actionable data that is easily accessible and the data taxonomy is consistent across the organization, I mean, that all becomes so critical. So, I mean, plus one to what just more said, that's how even we are kind of investing and structured within Humana, which is a big group of smart people across data engineering, data scientists, data governance folks, putting all the data in one place so that it's easily accessible. But also being a regulated industry, your access is obviously controlled because not everyone needs to have all the customer data.
Yeah. One important thing is like you shouldn't hire data scientists. There should be more engineers than data scientists, like maybe 1-4 ratio, and maybe even more. And really have good data hygiene.
Yep, absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, totally get that. Yeah, you mentioned Ashish, right? How healthcare is super regulated. But is there any like, right, regulation on like the marketing side for, I guess, in general across your guys' work, or I guess specifically, is there like marketing regulation in the healthcare domain that inhibits you from using certain like maybe AI strategies?
I wouldn't say inhibits. I would just say it's more around that you have to be just mindful of things around, like your model might make a recommendation. I'm just going to take a non-healthcare example to make my point. Your model might make a recommendation and say give a price one to more, a certain price to Mert and certain price to Ashish, but because of the nature of the business and a combination of the business, what is in the best in the consumer interests and the regulatory landscape, that's not feasible. So because that's not how kind of that doesn't hold good. So I mean, it's some of those things that you have to be mindful of, and also some of the things around regulations, what they mean from a testing perspective. Kind of some of the A/B, some of the things that you can do a classical A/B test in a financial services you can do in health, both because of the way business and plans are structured, but also sometimes it doesn't even make sense. I mean, it's one thing to give two different price points, but it's never a good thing to recommend two different health outcomes or health strategies, right? So there are just nuances around regulations and and the nature of the business that you have to be mindful of, and what you can do and what you should not do, because at the end of the day it's all about the customer. We are a very, very member focused business and need to make sure that whatever we are doing, it has to be fair to the consumer.
So to add to that, we also on the earner side for Uber, like drivers, couriers, we don't do any like differentiation because those are highly regulated areas. So
Yeah.
only for the consumer, like riders and like eaters. Yeah. So you have to, so you cannot use AI that much for earners. Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
Nice.
driver partners. Yeah.
Also, and from a regulatory perspective, I would just recognize that that landscape has definitely changed a lot in recent years, starting I think with GDPR in the EU. That has definitely very strongly influenced the way that companies think about leveraging customer data for marketing purposes, and following that, various other regulations like the California Consumer Privacy Act, and I think a lot of them are going to follow suit. So it's definitely something that I think a lot of people are thinking about. In fact, it's kind of it's given rise to a whole separate sector, which is called reg tech, where companies help other companies deal with this, and also consumers take charge of their own data. So definitely a whole different space, which is something to be thinking about.
Yeah, especially like keeping the data for long term. Like there's always data termination policies to abide.
Yeah, reg tech is an interesting field. And that kind of also leads me, so someone here asks, with analytics and predictions to upsell or cross-sell, does the panel test for neurodiversity and ML bias around the LGBTQ community? And to broaden that slightly, how do you guys think about bias, when it comes to getting models in production that are showing people products and trying to convince people of stuff? How are you thinking about bias in those programs?
So for us, like again, like for marketing to drivers or earners, couriers, we make sure the audience is balanced. So it's not just we actually use minimal AI, and as much as we can, we don't use any attributes, like for example related to sex, race, ethnicity, religions, and that kind of. And we don't have most of those attributes, but these like sex and age, we don't use in our models.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Cool. All right, thanks. And then someone here, Hillel, is wanted to confirm. Did someone say Tilium or Tiller?
Tilium.
Tilium. There you go, Hillel. Gotcha. All right, so let me go to my last official question here, and then maybe we can get back to a couple Q&As if we have time. My last official question, as you might imagine, is future focused. So what's the future? It's 2025. It's 2020. What's it going to be in 2025? What are your marketing programs going to look like?
I would say what we are working towards, and what I think keeps me really excited is a scenario where, again, going back to my earlier point, where your different point solutions that we are already using, we have been using, marketeers have been using along the customer journey, they're actually talking to each other. And a lot of things like next best action, next best message, and all of that actually have become a reality. And the reason they are kind of still in a nascent stage is because some of the data infrastructure opportunities that Mert talked about, right? I mean, those are the things I think in the next 5 years, given the pace of disruption and just the investments that organizations are making, I think you are seeing basically customer journeys, marketeers thinking about customer journeys and managing customer journeys, and with data flowing longitudinally across decision models, and actually nudging the customer towards the next best action, versus right now point solutions working at different points. I think that's how it looks like.
I completely agree with that. I think in any company, especially large organizations, that that sequence is very disjointed, and there's a lot of companies looking to tie those pieces together, especially from the analytics perspective. And I think we see a lot of emerging companies working on very specific marketing solutions, like the communications themselves, the campaigns themselves. But I think at the end of the day, starting with the actual customer analytics is where really what the intelligence and what the most valuable piece is for the marketer. And then from there onwards, if from within those types of engines you can find plugins to actually run the actual campaigns, that would be a really strong combination. But it's a complex landscape, and there's a lot of change recently in terms of what is technologically possible. So I think we're going to see a lot of movement in terms of new companies coming up and growing in the next few years.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. It's about the customer journey and intervening at the right time with the right offer, and guiding them and doing this at scale, real time.
At scale, that's the key.
Yeah.
Do you guys think voice is going to be a bigger part of your marketing efforts? Like, I have multiple Alexas, for example. Is voice part of what you think about for the future? Like, are people ordering more rides on Uber, or, buying healthcare stuff through voice?
I believe it will be. However, there's a caveat around there. I think from a consumer behavior perspective, the classical tension between, hey, I know it's very convenient, but I don't understand the privacy part. Like, I don't know what all Alexa is hearing, right? The classical concern that, or any coffee table conversation. So yes, I mean, there is something around that, which I think consumers, businesses have to inspire and educate consumers and inspire confidence. But yes, I think engagement with voice devices and engagement through voice, I think that's the future. That's where it's going.
Cool. Jaap?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think there will be a lot around voice. That said, I think voice, will be seen as like one other channel. And at the end of the day, like voice itself, is not where the actual intelligence lies. Where you can actually do the customer segmentation that is so important to marketing as a discipline. So I see it more as a different channel that can be activated than something that's really changing marketing as a discipline at its very core.
Cool. And then someone that's kind of a follow-up, Sean, just asked, where do you see chatbots going? So I guess, and I'll just text AI versus voice. Do you guys use chatbots?
Yes.
Yeah, It's a super crowded space. Like there's tons and tons of chatbot companies, and the premise, of course, is makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot of companies that have a lot of success adopting chatbots. So absolutely. But I think there is going to be a lot more creative ways in which a company can become an interface, an interactive interface on a web page on the internet, and that doesn't necessarily need to be a chatbot itself. Right, it can also just be on the web page, more interactive interfaces. So chatbot in its form that we've seen it emerge in the past years, I think that space has some challenges, but I think it's very much evolving, and I think we're going to see other ways emerge in which that interactive web pages may actually be more helpful than a simple chatbot.
Cool, thanks. All right, so we're just about at time. We've worked through quite a few questions. So before we officially sign off, so the three of you, you're each experts in your domains, and you're talking to a bunch of marketing people. It's 2020, AI is a thing. What piece of advice would you have for people? Whether it's what they should learn, think about, have in mind. End with one piece of advice from each of you.
Start with data. Start with data and culture. That's, to me, that's the fundamental. Everything else, I don't want to say jargon, but everything is, like buzzwords and, is the easier part. But if you don't have the right culture, right talent, because culture precedes talent, and then the clean data, everything else you don't get, then you don't get any ROI out of platforms, models.
I agree. Culture is the most important thing, because you can make the data say anything you want, and that you don't have an analytical and critical thinking culture.
And I guess on a low tech note, I think just in marketing in general, even though there's a lot of data, AI stuff going on, like don't lose sight of your messaging. That's still like very core to the discipline. And that's one of the first things we have to work on with companies. So don't lose sight of those sides of marketing as well.
Nice. Well, Curious End focused on mostly human things, culture and messaging. But that's maybe fitting. The human piece is not going to go away, even though AI is becoming more of a thing. All right. Massive thank you to the three of you for this awesome discussion. I think people learned some good stuff and seem very engaged. And thank you, everybody, for joining. Mert, Jaap, Ashish, Godspeed. Have an amazing rest of your week. And yeah, look forward to talking to the three of you again soon. Invisible claps from everybody.
Thank you for having us.
See you guys. Bye, everybody. Thank you.